Well, guys, man, we got to hear from our good old friend, man, general manager of the Cleveland Browns, man. We got to hear from Andrew Berry today. Andrew Berry, man, really dropped a bombshell on this quarterback situation that's going on in Cleveland, and you heard it from the horse's mouth, man. Andrew Berry, the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, went on ESPN Cleveland with Tony Rizzo and Tony Grossi, and he made a guest appearance, and they was asking some questions about the four quarterbacks that are now in the room in Cleveland. And he dropped a bombshell, and you ain't going to want to miss. You are now tuned into a brand new episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. For today, man, we got to talk about the general manager from the Cleveland Browns, Andrew Berry, giving us some insight on what's going on with the four quarterbacks that are in the quarterback room in Cleveland. And we're going to talk about it right after this.
Let me put you on game. These other podcasts out here talking that shit, but ain't repping the same. It's my bro K-Sap, chopping up topics for your optics. From politics to your top picks. Tune in, you gotta watch this. Exclusive material for your radio stereo, pumping high definition. Stop what you doing and listen. We smashing all competition. You better jump on this wave. Somebody pass me a mic, man, I got something to say.
Well, guys, like I said, man, we always going to give kudos to Andrew Berry, the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, man, for pulling off the stellar 2026 NFL draft on what he did an excellent job of getting weapons for the quarterback. You got yourself two high-profile receivers in KC Concepcion and Denzel Boston, and then also you picked up three more receivers in the unrestricted free agent market that signed to the team. And basically, we're going to call them, like Shedeur Sanders said last year, we're going to call them the hungry dogs. The unrestricted free agents, they are the hungry dogs. They coming into camp trying to push this wide receiver core that they already have of Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Corley, Gabe Larbadan, and Isaiah Bond. They're going to try to push this wide receiver core to the max so they can find themselves a spot on the team. If they don't find themselves a spot on the team, at least get onto a practice squad to get advertised so they can latch on with another NFL team. But at this particular moment, everybody's focused on this quarterback issue because of what happened in the draft. Cleveland Browns general manager and Todd Monken, they took a quarterback in the 6th round in Taylor Green. He's a freak of an athlete, 6'6". He ran a 4.3 40 at the combine. He got the best broad jump in the combine, and he has a strong arm, but the accuracy's not there. A lot of interceptions in his collegiate career, a pass percentage, completion rate of like 54 to 55%. And a lot of people are trying to see how he's going to make a difference in this quarterback room. So today, we sat there and listened to Andrew Berry on ESPN Cleveland, and he gave y'all some insights on what this quarterback carousel looks like in Cleveland. And he dropped some interesting things when it was pertaining to Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, but he really didn't give too much insight on Dillion Gabriel. So what about Dillion Gabriel? Is he speaking highly of Taylor Green over Dillion Gabriel? But I'm going to let y'all guys decide for yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in Andrew Berry on the interview that he had on ESPN Cleveland, and I'm going to let you guys decipher on what's he mean on all the information he has put out there. So let's take a listen to Andrew Berry.
You'll bring four quarterbacks to camp, as you did last year, but then what will the assessment be at that point, and what ultimately do you plan on doing for the season with the four you have?
Yeah, so I think, we've preached competition since we've been here, and that'll hold true in the quarterback room. As Todd said, that doesn't mean that everybody gets equal reps, and that's true across positions. But we're looking for performance. And I hate to make it that simple, but that's what it's about. Ultimately, I think you all know that we like to keep at least three quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, provided that they earn the spot, and another on the practice squad. So we want to make sure that we have talent and depth at the position.
All right, where does Shedeur sit right now? I know Coach said he's not ready to get into who takes first reps and second reps, but based on what he did last year, what are your expectations for him this year?
To take another step and keep growing and learning. I think he's had a really nice offseason. He did a really nice job at voluntary mini camp. I think his improvements in decision-making and pocket management by the end of the year, and certainly what we've seen so far in a very short spring, have been positive. And I expect him to have more command of the offense and better ball security and situational awareness as we go into year 2.
Does Deshaun have an advantage over him in this competition because he's been around for so long and played at such a high level?
I don't know that any player has an advantage. I think certainly experience helps. Like that's one of the strengths that Deshaun has relative to the rest of the room. I wouldn't say that in and of itself gives any player an advantage. I think both of those guys have worked really hard over the past several months, and we're pleased with how they've started our offseason programming. So we'll see how the next few weeks, next few months play out as all those guys, Dillion and then eventually Talon, kind of get up and running, and we'll see where the chips fall.
Now you heard what Andrew Berry had to say, man, and he spoke candidly of Shedeur Sanders, talking about everything that he sees he improved on since last year. Said he had a nice off season. He said he had a great start to the OTAs, and he said the footwork, and he said he would like to see him take another step forward in controlling and commanding this offense. So he really spoke highly about Shedeur Sanders. And then when Rizzo asked Andrew Berry about Deshaun Watson, he was basically saying, the experience, but he didn't say what Deshaun Watson worked on. How does he look after the injury? Because we know Rizzo put out in the stratosphere in the new narrative that they said that Deshaun Watson looked excellent in training camp or the OTA mini camp. Said that, he took majority of the reps, but Andrew Berry didn't confirm that. So then when it came to Dillon Gabriel, what about Dillion? He didn't give no breakdown on what Dillion has done, how he's looked. And then he didn't say too much about Taylor Green, but we heard what Todd Monken had to say about Taylor Green in his press conference, talking about the Wildcat situation, because of the raw talent and the 6'6" frame and the speed and athleticism. But basically, Andrew Berry is giving you guys what he thinks and who is going to be, because they know who's going to be quarterback one. They say it's a competition, and I'm glad it's a competition, because you just don't want to come out there and say the job was handed to somebody. And like in the offseason, all the players said this is Shedeur Sanders' job to lose. And it seems the way Andrew Berry broke it down, Shedeur Sanders has an advantage right now. But Andrew Berry doing what Andrew Berry does, man. He dropped a bombshell on Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. But what about Dillion? I told you, and then Mary Kay tries to keep Dillion in the stratosphere and keep that narrative that Dillon Gabriel is going to shock a lot of people. Don't count him out of this quarterback competition. So I'm looking at it like this. When it comes down to it, just pay attention to what Todd Monken has said about Shedeur Sanders. Pay attention to what Andrew Berry has said about Shedeur Sanders. So basically, Shedeur Sanders is really impressing them guys on what he has learned from last year and what he has shown them in the off season when they see in some of the workouts and what they have seen at this short OTA on what Shedeur Sanders brought on the field and showed with his mechanics, his footwork. He slimmed down, the ball placement, which he's always had, accuracy. But Shedeur Sanders is impressing them guys, because if he wasn't, they wouldn't be coming out saying the candid things of what they saying about Shedeur Sanders. So guys, just pay close attention, man. And what I'm saying is, Andrew Berry just out there dropping bombshells, man. I see everybody in the comment section Hashtag salute. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And this is going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. We're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.